You probably think you are strong. You lift weights, you pursue your goals, and you try to keep your life in order. But let me ask you a dangerous question. How easily can someone ruin your day? A disrespectful tone from a boss, a delayed flight, a woman leaving you on red. If a stranger can alter your heart rate with a mere string of words, are you truly a strong man? Or are you just a puppet dancing to the strings of the external world? Here is the brutal truth that society hides from you. Your emotional reactivity is keeping you weak, exploitable, and average. The world wants you reactive because a reactive man is easy to control. But there is a hidden architecture of the mind, a framework understood by only a fraction of a percent of men. It is the path of the modern Stoic. Today we are breaking down 7 specific, uncompromising habits that will forge you into something entirely different, something emotionally untouchable. By the end of this video, you will possess the tools to look absolute chaos in the eye and feel nothing but cold, calculated focus. Tell me in the comments right now, what is the one trigger that always makes you lose your cool? Acknowledge it, because today we destroy it. Before we build the fortress, we must understand the battlefield. The modern man is under constant psychological siege. We live in an economy designed to farm your attention and harvest your outrage. Every algorithm, every news headline, and every social media feed is meticulously crafted to hijack your nervous system. They want you angry. They want you anxious. Because when you are emotionally unstable, you consume more, you argue more, and you stay distracted. This is the invisible cage you have been placed inside. The problem is not that you are inherently weak. The problem is that you have been conditioned to react instantly to everything. You have been taught that every feeling requires an action, and that every external event requires an emotional response. This is a lie that breeds misery. True masculinity, true personal power, has nothing to do with how loud you can yell or how aggressively you can impose your will. It is about sovereignty. It is about creating a mind so disciplined that the external world loses its grip on you completely. We are not talking about reading ancient dust-covered books. We are talking about applying lethal psychological principles to your modern life, starting right now. Habit 1. The sovereign pause. Let us begin with the foundation of all emotional control, the space between stimulus and response. Right now, your life operates like a simple machine. An event happens, and you immediately react. Someone cuts you off in traffic, and you instantly feel rage. The event and the emotion are glued together. The first habit of the emotionally untouchable man is violently severing that connection. We call this the sovereign pause. It is the conscious, deliberate decision to freeze time before you react to anything. In psychology, it is known as cognitive decoupling. For the Stoic, it is the ultimate weapon. When the insult lands, when the bad news arrives, you do not flinch. You stop. You breathe. You observe. You force your brain out of the primal, reactive state and into the prefrontal cortex, the seat of logic. You realize that the initial surge of emotion is just a chemical reaction, not a command you have to follow. This tiny fraction of a second is where your freedom lives. Without the pause, you are an animal responding to a stick. With the pause, you become the architect of your own reality. Mastering the silence. Implementing the sovereign pause requires an uncomfortable level of discipline. When someone attacks you verbally, their biological expectation is that you will attack back or retreat. They expect the rapid fire of human conflict. When you deny them this, you break their script. Imagine you are in a high-stakes meeting. A competitor attempts to belittle your work. The weak man gets defensive, his voice raises, his heart pounds. He has already lost. The Stoic simply looks at them. He holds eye contact. He lets 2, 3, 4 seconds pass in absolute silence. That silence is deafening. It projects supreme confidence and terrifying control. It tells the other person, "Your words are not powerful enough to rush my mind." You are teaching yourself that no external emergency demands your immediate emotional participation. You observe the feeling of anger rising in your chest. You analyze it like a scientist looking through a microscope. And then you decide how to act. You choose your response, instead of letting the response choose you. This is what separates kings from peasants. The illusion of urgency. The reason the pause is so difficult to master is because society has programmed us with a false sense of urgency. We are told that every message needs an instant reply, that every situation requires an immediate take. This is a toxic myth. Almost nothing in life requires your split-second emotional reaction. If you receive an infuriating email, step away from the keyboard. Walk around the block. Let the adrenaline dissipate. The Stoic knows that a delayed, rational response is infinitely more powerful than a fast, emotional one. Think of a sniper compared to a man firing blindly with a machine gun. The machine gunner is loud, reactive, and wastes his ammunition on shadows. The sniper is perfectly still. He controls his breathing. He waits for the exact, perfect moment to pull the trigger. Your emotional energy is your ammunition. Stop spraying it blindly at every minor inconvenience. Conserve it. Master the pause, and you will find that 90% of the things you used to react to simply do not matter. You become a ghost to the drama of the world. Habit 2. The iron boundary of control. If the pause is your shield, the dichotomy of control is your sword. This is the single most defining principle of the untouchable mind. Every single day, you are bleeding mental energy. You worry about the economy. You stress over what people think of you. You agonize over whether a woman will text you back. You are pouring your life force into black holes. The Stoic aggressively divides the world into 2 strict categories: things he can control and things he cannot. Your actions, your thoughts, your discipline, and your responses. These belong to you. Everything else, and I mean everything else, belongs to fate. The weather, the stock market, the opinions of your peers, the past, the future. None of it is yours. The moment you invest your emotional stability into something you cannot control, you have handed over the keys to your happiness. You have volunteered for slavery. The strong man recognizes this trap and ruthlessly cuts the cord. Surgical detachment from the external. Let us bring this into the modern context. You work for 6 months on a massive project. You do everything perfectly. You present it to the board, and they reject it because of a sudden shift in company politics. The average man falls into despair. He complains about how unfair the world is. He loses his motivation. The Stoic looks at the situation with surgical detachment. He asks himself one question: did I execute my part flawlessly? If the answer is yes, he sleeps like a baby. The outcome was in the hands of the board, which means it is completely irrelevant to his self-worth. You must train your mind to stop confusing your effort with the external result. People will betray you. Markets will crash. Cars will break down. This is the natural chaos of the universe. Getting angry at these things is like getting angry at the rain for making you wet. It is irrational. Your only job is to carry an umbrella. Shift 100% of your focus to your own behavior. When you truly internalize this, a massive weight is lifted off your shoulders. You stop playing a game you cannot win. Conserving mental currency. Think of your emotional bandwidth as a highly limited daily currency. You wake up with 100 coins. Are you really going to spend 20 coins getting furious at the traffic jam? Are you going to spend 40 coins stressing over a vague text message? By the time you get to the things that actually matter, your purpose, your fitness, your legacy, your bank account, is empty. The elite man is incredibly stingy with his emotional currency. He refuses to fund the useless drama of the uncontrollable. When you draw this iron boundary, people will notice a change in you. They will think you are cold or unfeeling. Let them think what they want. You are simply no longer participating in their hysterical reality. You have built an invisible wall. On the outside, the storm rages, people panic, and chaos reigns. On the inside, there is nothing but order, quiet, and relentless forward motion. This is the power of the dichotomy of control. It makes you a fortress in a world of fragile glass. Habit 3. Stripping the narrative. One of the most destructive habits of the human mind is the tendency to tell ourselves terrifying stories about simple facts. This brings us to the third habit, objective perception. An event in itself has no emotional weight. It is completely neutral. You lose your job. That is a fact. But what does your brain do? It immediately starts weaving a nightmare narrative. It says, you are a failure. You will never find another job. You will end up homeless. Everyone is laughing at you. It is not the job loss that destroys you. It is the tragic movie you are playing in your head. The untouchable man refuses to be the victim of his own storytelling. He strips every event down to its bare, objective reality. He separates the facts from the judgments. When something negative happens, he brutally edits the script. He takes out the adjectives. He removes the drama. He looks at reality strictly through the lens of cold, hard data. The myth of the victim. Society loves a victim. It encourages you to complain, to find someone to blame, and to magnify your suffering. This is a trap designed to keep you powerless. When you add a subjective emotional narrative to an objective event, you multiply your suffering by 10. The Stoic knows that he is never injured by the things that happen to him, only by his opinion of those things. Let us say someone insults you. The objective fact is simply that a person vibrated their vocal cords and produced sounds in the air. That is it. The injury only occurs when you decide those sounds mean something degrading about your character. If you refuse to accept the narrative, the insult instantly dissolves. It has nowhere to land. You must become ruthless with your internal dialogue. Whenever you catch yourself complaining, stop. Ask yourself, what are the actual undeniable facts of this situation? You will find that the facts are usually quite manageable. It is only the imaginary story that feels overwhelming. Kill the story, and you kill the pain. The lens of the strategist. Once you strip away the emotional narrative, you stop being a victim and become a strategist. A strategist does not cry over a lost battle. He analyzes the terrain, counts his remaining troops, and plans the next move. This is how you must approach every setback in your life. View it from a bird's-eye perspective. You are not a tragedy waiting to happen. You are a complex problem-solving machine. When you remove the ego and the emotional bloat from a situation, the solution usually becomes blindingly obvious. You lost the client? Good. The objective reality is that your pitch was weak. The strategic response is to improve the pitch. There is no room for sadness, only data collection. This habit transforms you into a highly efficient operator. While other men are busy crying over spilled milk, you are already building a better glass. You become emotionally untouchable because you refuse to let reality be anything other than exactly what it is. No more, no less. Habit 4. Voluntary discomfort. We now enter the physical realm of emotional control. We live in the most comfortable era in human history. We have temperature-controlled rooms, food delivered to our doors, and infinite entertainment in our pockets. This comfort is a poison. It makes us soft, fragile, and terrified of pain. The fourth habit of the elite Stoic is the deliberate pursuit of voluntary discomfort. You cannot build a calloused mind in a silk bed. If you want to be emotionally unbreakable when life throws a crisis at you, you must train for it by creating artificial crises of your own. You must microdose adversity. This is why the strongest men embrace physical suffering. They lift heavy weights until their muscles fail. They take freezing cold showers. They fast for 24 hours. They run until their lungs burn. They are not doing this just for physical health. They are doing it to conquer the voice in their head that begs them to quit. Forging the armor. Every time you choose discomfort over pleasure, you are laying another brick in your psychological armor. When you step into a freezing shower, your entire nervous system panics. Your brain screams at you to step out, to find warmth, to seek comfort. But you stand there. You control your breathing. You override the panic with conscious will. You teach your brain that you are the master, not your impulses. This daily practice creates a profound shift in your baseline tolerance for stress. When a real crisis hits, a financial loss, a breakup, a health scare, your mind does not shatter. It recognizes the terrain. It says, "We have been in pain before. We know how to suffer. We know how to stay calm when the fire burns." The man who has never voluntarily faced hardship is easily crushed by the slightest wind. The man who seeks out the storm becomes the storm. Voluntary discomfort is the ultimate vaccination against the unexpected miseries of life. The eradication of fear. What are most men truly afraid of? They are afraid of losing their comfort. They are terrified of being poor, of being hungry, of being cold, of being alone. By deliberately exposing yourself to these states, you strip them of their power. You sleep on the floor for a night, and you realize you will survive. You skip meals for a day, and you realize hunger is just a sensation, not an emergency. You look your deepest fears in the eye and realize they are toothless. This builds a dangerous kind of confidence. When you are no longer a slave to comfort, you become impossible to manipulate. An employer cannot threaten you with poverty if you have already mastered living on nothing. A woman cannot threaten you with loneliness if you have already found peace in absolute solitude. You become a self-contained ecosystem of power. You embrace the hard path because you know that true emotional invincibility is only forged in the fires of deliberate struggle. Habit 5. Outcome independence. This habit separates the masters from the amateurs. Most men live their lives entirely obsessed with the finish line. They want the money, they want the girl, They want the promotion. They attach their entire identity and emotional state to acquiring the prize. This is a catastrophic error. When you need a specific outcome to be happy, you project desperation. Desperation makes you anxious, clingy, and ultimately weak. The fifth Stoic habit is radical outcome independence. It is the practice of detaching your ego completely from the result and attaching it solely to the execution of the process. You put in the maximum amount of effort, you optimize every variable, and then you completely let go of what happens next. You accept that the universe does not owe you a reward just because you worked hard. You decouple your self-worth from the scoreboard. The power of the process. Let us look at how this plays out in reality. If you approach a business deal, desperately needing the client to say yes, they will smell the weakness on you. You will compromise your values, you will talk too much, and you will lose respect. But if you approach the deal focused solely on delivering an impeccable presentation, completely detached from whether they sign or not, you become incredibly magnetic. You speak with calm authority. You are willing to walk away. Paradoxically, the less you need the outcome, the more likely you are to get it. This applies to everything from negotiating a salary to dating. The man who is outcome independent is free. He does not fear rejection because a rejection does not change who he is. He is playing a game against himself, constantly refining his own skills. The trophy is just a byproduct. When you master this habit, you eliminate the anxiety of anticipation. You do the work, you drop the pen, and you walk away unbothered by the verdict of the world. Habit 6. The premeditation of evils. Positive thinking is a trap for the naive. Modern self-help gurus tell you to manifest good things, to only visualize success, and to banish negative thoughts. This leaves you completely defenseless when tragedy inevitably strikes. The Stoics practiced something called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. This is the 6th habit, and it requires a strong stomach. It is the deliberate, systematic visualization of the worst-case scenarios. You sit in a quiet room, and you actively imagine everything going wrong. You imagine losing your business. You imagine your reputation being destroyed. You imagine the people you love leaving you. You visualize the pain, the betrayal, and the ruin. This is not pessimism. This is tactical preparation. You are exposing your mind to the virus of disaster in a controlled environment, so that it builds the antibodies required to survive the real thing. Removing the element of surprise. Why do people break down in a crisis? It is almost always because of the element of surprise. The shock of the unexpected overloads their nervous system. But if you have already lived through the disaster 100 times in your mind, the shock is gone. When the market crashes, the average man panics because he never thought it was possible. The Stoic remains perfectly calm because he anticipated the crash months ago. He already made peace with the loss. He already mapped out his recovery plan. By facing your darkest fears voluntarily, you drain them of their emotional venom. You realize that even if everything falls apart, even if you are stripped of all your wealth and status, you will still have your mind. You will still have your character. You will rebuild. The premeditation of evils kills anxiety because anxiety is simply the fear of the unknown. When you map out the absolute worst that can happen, the unknown becomes known. The monster under the bed is revealed to be nothing but shadows. The grateful warrior. There is a profound secondary benefit to visualizing loss. It triggers an intense, visceral gratitude for the present moment. When you truly imagine what it would be like to lose your health, you suddenly appreciate every breath you take. When you imagine losing your home, sitting in your living room becomes a privilege. Most men drift through life taking everything for granted, always complaining about what they lack. The Stoic warrior appreciates everything because he knows it is all temporary. He knows the universe can reclaim its gifts at any second. This keeps him grounded, humble, and fiercely protective of his time. He does not waste days arguing over trivial nonsense because he is acutely aware of his own mortality. He lives with a quiet intensity. He expects nothing, prepares for the worst, and fully utilizes the present. This dark visualization paradoxically leads to the most vibrant, emotionally stable existence possible. Habit 7. The Inner Citadel. We have arrived at the final habit, the culmination of all the principles we have discussed. It is the construction of the inner citadel. Marcus Aurelius wrote about a fortress within the mind, an impenetrable sanctuary where no external force can reach. This is not a metaphor. It is a psychological reality you must build brick by brick. The inner citadel is your ultimate safe haven. It is a state of consciousness where your core values, your peace, and your self-respect are locked away behind walls of titanium. No boss, no government, no toxic partner, and no societal collapse can enter this space without your explicit permission. You build this citadel by rigorously filtering what you allow into your mind. You become fiercely protective of your mental real estate. You cut out toxic friendships. You stop watching the news that only serves to make you angry. You curate your environment with the ruthless precision of a military commander. The sovereign individual. To maintain the inner citadel, you must practice absolute self-sufficiency. You cannot rely on external validation to feel good about yourself. If your confidence is based on the compliments of others, it can be destroyed by their criticisms. The elite man derives his value internally. He judges himself against his own unbending standards. Did I act with honor today? Did I hold my tongue when I was angry? Did I do the hard work when I was tired? If the answers are yes, the opinions of the outside world are completely irrelevant noise. You become a sovereign individual, an empire of one. People will try to drag you down to their level of emotional chaos. They will try to guilt-trip you, shame you, and provoke you. But their attacks will simply shatter against the walls of your citadel. You will look at their frantic behavior, not with anger, but with a quiet, analytical pity. You realize they are prisoners of their own minds, while you hold the keys to yours. The untouchable state. When these 7 habits merge, the pause, the boundary of control, the objective lens, voluntary discomfort, outcome independence, negative visualization, and the inner citadel, you reach the state of being emotionally untouchable. This does not mean you are a robot. You still feel joy, you still love fiercely, and you still experience the richness of life, but you are no longer a casualty of it. You experience emotions, but they do not command you. You walk through the chaotic modern world with a calm, predatory grace. You are unshakable. Men will respect you because they sense a depth of discipline they cannot comprehend. Women will be drawn to you because in a sea of frantic, reactive boys, you are an immovable rock. You have conquered the only territory that actually matters, the territory between your own ears. You have stopped fighting the world, and you have finally mastered yourself. This is the path of the 1%. The journey to becoming emotionally untouchable is not for the weak, the lazy, or the easily offended. It requires you to violently tear down your old reactive programming and rebuild your mind from the ground up. It requires you to seek out discomfort, to let go of your desperate need for control over others, and to face the darkest possibilities of life with a steady gaze. But the reward is absolute freedom. The ultimate power is not forcing the world to bend to your will. It is creating a mind that cannot be broken, regardless of what the world does. You now possess the blueprint. The 7 habits are in your hands. The only question is whether you have the discipline to execute them, or if you will return to being a slave to your emotions by tomorrow morning. Thank you for joining the ranks of those who seek mastery. If this knowledge shifted your perspective, hit the subscribe button, like this video, and share it with a man who needs to wake up. Leave a comment below with the word untouchable to solidify your commitment to the Stoic path. Now log off, step into the chaos, and remain perfectly still.